Hey guys, and welcome back to the Path to Exile Podcast, episode 34, partnered with Mobilytics. I am Kyle Torak, and joining me per usual is Miso Shiro and Dead Rabbit. And if you're new here, we have our audio-only formats on Apple Music and Spotify. And if you do happen to listen to us there, please give us a rating. It'll help us out a lot. This week we have one of my personal favorite build creators. I think you're like one of the first build creator friends that I've had in PoE. You reached out to me super early, and we've had a lot of great talks. I love you, man. This is Jorgen, dude. He's the Delve God, PoE off-meta legend. What's up, bro?
Thanks for having me on, and yeah, fingers crossed I can hold myself together, and yeah.
Just really quickly, like very early on, I was like, I wanted to do an interview series with build makers, and I reached out to you, and we had it was a really late time, and like we had like a 3.5 hour talk, and I fucked up the audio for it, and it was like unsalvageable. I sent the audio file to like 8 different audio people, and they just couldn't salvage it, and I felt so bad. It was such a cool talk. You said so much cool shit about build making, and yeah, that always bummed me out.
Yeah, and I've definitely been around the block and seen some stuff. I realized like this is I think the channel that I was looking at my channel videos like all the way back, going back nearly like 7 years with my girlfriend, about 2 months ago, and I'm like, man, I used to look so young when I started the channel, and now it's just all falling apart. But
You still look good, man. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Before we dive into the podcast, let's just do a little bit of catching up. What's everyone been up to lately? Let's just start with Rabbit before we get into the PoE 1 talks. The three of us have been grinding that PoE 1. Rabbit, man, I know you've been like really addicted to the D2 grind. No memes aside, like this seems like a really good time for the D2 fans. Like, how have you been enjoying the last, 2 to 3? What has it been? 3 weeks since the launch?
I don't even know. I don't even know.
Was it yesterday?
I just looked. I don't know. I think it's been around like almost exactly 3 weeks now, with the whole update. And when the Rise of the Warlock or Reign of the Warlock thing came out, I actually got the Steam version, because for the first time you can actually now get it on Steam. So I can see what I've been doing over the past 3 weeks. And I've racked up over 350 hours already in 3 weeks. So no. It's been bad. No, but really good. I'm super happy. It's extremely amazing. I've had like a very long break from Diablo 2. The longest break I ever had, which was about like 2 years or something of actually not playing Diablo 2 ever. So it's been a blast, and I'm very hopeful. Like I think I've talked about this on the podcast already. I'm very hopeful because Diablo 2, if they actually continue in this lane and have like the community close to the devs and develop stuff that the community actually wants, like we got in this is like an update where you couldn't really believe that this is actually Blizzard. And spoiler alert, it isn't Blizzard because it's Vicarious Visions, and that's why it's good probably. So yeah, if it continues like this, it's gonna be very nice. And it came at a perfect timing for me as well. With PoE 2 in the off season like this, I just like I couldn't have chosen something else, and that's also the reason why I didn't go with PoE 1 so far. But I've watched like on the side, I've watched so many PoE 1 streams, and it looks amazing. And you guys can probably tell me a lot more about that. So it looked very nice. But I've also realized, sorry for rambling, I've also realized how far out of my depth I am already again with PoE 1. Because I've skipped so many leagues now that I don't understand anything. PoE 1 can basically be a new game for me now. Because yesterday I was watching Farmer, and he was like, I stopped before Scarabs, for example, and he was doing stuff yesterday with King's March and everything, and I had no idea what was happening. I had no idea what was happening.
If it ever comes to PoE 2, you're going to have like the entire. I've been loving King's March, and the entire time I'm interacting with, like, oh, Dead Rabbit is going to freaking love the system. This is just like the juicer min maxer. Like, it's just so much dopamine in one hit. Yeah, it's so cool.
Oh, I thought it was just degenerate gambling for some reason, but you went this route. So
that's Path of Exile in general.
I mean, yeah, that's every
Yeah,
system.
yeah.
It's everything's varying levels of degeneracy, no matter what you go into. So yeah, you're not alone.
For anyone interested in that, Blazeworks did an amazing video on this just recently. I think the video was just called Path of Exile 2 is a casino, or Path of Exile is a casino. And he broke down in like video form exactly what what makes the game basically a gambling like simulator, but in a good way, kind of. It's not like it always gets like the gambling thing always gets attached to very bad stuff, and in some cases, very rightly so. But it is also just for Path of Exile or Path of Exile 2. It's also just what makes these games kind of fun because it is just the slot machine moment. It is like the roll or the oh shit, the despair and the grief and the happiness. It's what makes these games. So
Oh, I know the grief part.
It's funny, Miso. You were doing that Black
That's the
Mario
guy-
boss, and like I didn't realize the belt couldn't drop because I had killed him like 14 times and always got the belt. And you were like went on a streak where you just like saw it once out of 14 kills. I was like, oh, he doesn't drop only the belt. Interesting. Outside of getting the mirror, you seem to have pretty bad luck.
I rage quit the stream last night or the night before because of that.
I saw that.
I just ended the stream like, all right, I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah, I've had a pretty fun league. The gambling is interesting because it is like in every because Delve was busted the first part of the week, it was like unplayable for me. I had to constantly like log in and out to be able to go through like areas. It was horrible. So Delve is normally what I always do, and I literally just ignore mapping altogether, and I just like degenerate, just go delving. But this was the first time I was like, well, I'm gonna try out the new mapping system, and I started trying out new systems. And the first one is Beast. I loved Beast farming for the beginning of the league, but that's just gambling farming. It's just like you have to blast through the map and hope you find the 6 to 7 beasts that sell really well, and you just keep spamming through 40 maps, and eventually, when you're done with that, you'll have a couple of the big crow dude that sells
Black Morgan, yeah,
Black
and
Morgan,
you
yeah,
just
you
use the regex, and you just like paste that in, like boom, go back, farm
Yep.
like 20 maps, All right,
exactly
here's
what I
50
did for
here's
my
50D.
league start, and I
Yep.
made it. That's how I funded my my Mjolnir build. And then after that, it's funny, I started doing scarabs, and scarabs are a new farm, but like I was starting doing scarabs like 12 hours before like all the content creators started making their scarab videos. So I was like, oh, this is actually printing so much currency, and then the scarab prices like quadrupled. I was like, oh, okay, I'm not gonna do strong. Oh, I said strong boxes is what I meant. I've been strong boxes. It was a lot of fun, and now I'm doing King's March, and I'm just absolutely addicted to King's March. And Delve being busted is what like led to me trying out all these different Ling mechanics. I really like King's March. It's a lot of fun. Like, I mean, I like simulation games. It's like a mini simulation game, but it gets that big dopamine of apparently you can get mirror shards from them. So right now I'm trying to do a big 50 million cost shipment that yeah, that's what I'm building towards right now. It's a lot of fun. Like the mapping in PoE 1. Sorry, this is a little rambly, but the mapping in PoE 1 is like this is the first time I've ever enjoyed. I'm usually like a boss spammer or like a weird off-system spammer. This is the first time I've ever enjoyed mapping, and they've done like I don't know how we get this in PoE 2, but I want it in PoE 2.
The system sort of leads into it based on what I can see. Like the whole system that they've put in with the generic maps, and the way that the tree sort of branches out is more or less like if they just did something very similar to that in PoE 2, the endgame would feel polarizingly different. And the other thing, I think the big kicker here is the ground loot change. Like any map you run just feels like pure dopamine, like you're probably going to walk away with something. And that's like one of the biggest things, that just like roll back that friction gameplay mentality that they went with for a very long time. And they're like, all right, we're going to add fun back into the game this league. I like, as someone who's played since like closed beta, like this is probably the best I've ever seen the ground loot in maps in years. So it's probably one of the other reasons why it's so much fun. That you can always get something from playing anything, or Elk and Go, and you can get rewarded for it.
Yeah. At the same time, I don't think it feels like crazy. It doesn't feel like over the top, like loot explosions everywhere, like last Epoch would. It still does feel like, when you get that drop, you're still like, oh, cool. This is awesome. This is amazing. This is a great drop. Oh, wow, a div. That's great. Oh, a fracturing.
Yeah, it's nice divs having value too. Like just getting away from Fate of the Val. Like when I get divs in this game, it's like, oh fuck yeah! Like this has some real value still, and always feels cool. I got a little bit numb to like despite not even doing Temple in PoE 2, the div drop rate is a lot higher.
Yeah.
That's exactly like this little lightning in a bottle that or especially me with the Diablo 2 background, I've always talked about. This is what I need in an ARPG, and this is This is exactly like it sounds. I'm basically installing PoE 1 right now upon hearing this because
You
it like
should.
I
This is the
really
league I
I
needed.
yeah. It like this it sounds perfect. I really hope this, and like Jorgen also says, like I really hope, I think he said this before the podcast. So um this feeding and those lessons to be learned, I need them to be fed into PoE 2, please. That would be amazing. Because I think PoE 2 has an amazing base for having that. Like the loot hunting, everything, bosses or whatever there may be in the future. It's super nice. You have these moments from time to time in PoE 2, especially early ladder. You have it like from time to time. Like, I don't know, week 1 in, I remember in the first week, I think Fopgon was doing the poison burst and he was using high-res ire, and you found a high-res ire, and it's not like something that is completely out of the ordinary, or it's something that you just find like once in thousands of hours, but it was just like, oh damn, that's 17 divines right now. Wow, like that is just a moment that not only makes like your day or whatever. It's like I still remember it, and I think we just need and I've talked about this extensively on this podcast. We need more of these. We need more of these, and to have a situation, especially in like the whole temple meta that we just had, that destroyed kind of my fun in the long term a lot. I knew it immediately when I saw what was happening at temple, and I finally got my temple up and running, and the diff started going like this. I was like, oh damn, this is fun right now, but I know it's not going to be fun tomorrow anymore, and this is going to destroy my said like dopamine receptors or whatever. But it's just in the end, it's like it just
Problem
it can't be like that.
The problem there is the offset of balance between what you get from Alkengo mapping versus the temple, which is why everyone flocked to it. The issue that we're going to see with the 0.5, there's a 0.5 patch, the next patch, is that's going to 100% knowing, like following GGG for years, they are taking that away. They're never going to allow that. The problem with what that caused, and I saw a lot of comments in my channel and other chats and whatnot, where people were like, oh, this is the best the market's ever been. But if you're trading like lineage gems for like 3,000 divine on average, that's a real market inflation problem. And it just doesn't work. And it doesn't enable like the the dad players and stuff like that, as people were saying. It actually heavily limits them because of that gap. And then like when the market bursts out within like 2 weeks, and everything costs like thousands and thousands of divine, it's just like it's at that point everything you do becomes pretty pointless and nothing has any meaning, which is probably why PoE 1's really hitting the right mark right now, because like I think we saw divs are still like 188C something on average, like that.
It was
So like
168 before I logged off last night.
yeah, and that's sort of where you want it to be, and like everything's inclining. Kaltroik, for you, delve currencies like 1.1 div per hollow fossil now. So every node you go down, you make 1.1 div. But everything has like a relatively good amount of tradability. And the other big thing that sort of separates PoE 1 in this, which they need to take notes on, is every mechanic has different builds that excel in each part. So you really have to specialize in certain things, which makes you really focus down on that mechanic. But the mechanics are somewhat far more robust in the nature that they're designed in PoE 1. And that's something that needs to be considered for PoE 2, I think, to really add value to the end game. So it's not just like a superficial mechanic that it's the old, like, jack of all trades, but master of none sort of scenario. And that's probably where people sort of fall off with the end game too there.
Yeah, I had the realization the other day that like the reason why I can grind PoE 2 so much is because I like make way too many builds. Like this league, I played 14 different builds in Endgame. Like if I didn't do that, I would have played. Like I would have quit so long ago. It's just because I'm just trying out new stuff. I'm learning stuff. And playing PoE 1 this league has shown me like there's so much about PoE 1 that's just like I'm going for the challenges. Like I'm gonna try and get the Burger King helmet. Like I'm gonna try. This is this is the first league I've ever even opened the challenges before. I've never even cared to look at them before. I usually just like quit when I like get all my like get some of the void stones and then call it a day. Like this is the first time I'm like actually diving in with like there's a lot of reasons for that. I think Mirage is just a really cool league mechanic in general. It's just so much fun like duplicating those areas, and there's like a lot of cool techniques you can like. Certain maps are better for duplicating certain better probability for getting the mechanic inside of the Mirage and stuff. So like there's a lot of things you can do to min max it, and it just leads to like if you want to do one mechanic, you can just super juice that one mechanic and really enjoy it in the Mirage. It's just really like there's just so much vertical progression that PoE 2 does not have. At some point you just very early on a build can clear all content and there's nothing beyond that. So it's just, to me, it's just PoE 2 needs more like if 0.5 had challenges, I would be so ecstatic. I would like that alone would just bring so much life to the game. I think there was an episode with me, Miso, and Try where I was just kind of like I said the exact opposite, where I was like, I don't really like that. Let's progression in PoE 1. I don't really care about all that. We just need more content. But that is a serious level of content. It's a journey for that character and a journey for the league, and that's where I'm getting a lot of it from. Is just there's just I don't know. This is a really good league. Like you said earlier, this is a really good league. This is my favorite league I've ever played. I don't know if that's just because I'm like a better knowledge of PoE from playing PoE 2, or like if this league is just actually that amazing. But I'm loving it.
Yeah. Before we kind of move on, I wanted to address a couple of things. Jorgen, when he was talking about like the inflation of the economy in PoE 2, I think it's like really interesting because like I'm sure you've been through it as well, Jorgen, but like in Path of Exile 1, whenever people went through their first like absolutely busted league, everybody's like, this is the best league ever. It's like their favorite league. But then just like when you take a look at it in retrospect, it's actually really not good to do that, because basically people are like, yo, this should be like every single league. But like, it's not great, because the way that gear scales and like prices scale, like as you get closer and closer to mirror tier gear, it gets exponentially more expensive. So it's like if the baseline is like where like the average let's just say, yeah, the average person is chasing for mirror tier gear, as opposed to like what they usually is chasing for. Maybe it's like a headhunter or like, whatever, maybe PoE 1 mage blood, things like that. Like when you're chasing that mirror tier gear, it becomes so much harder to actually upgrade your gear and get a significant change and like growth in your character, that like it becomes kind of like a situation where you hit, it's like, again, last epoch, where you hit a wall in your upgrades because it just costs so much more to get to that next upgrade that you just get bored. Because that's what people enjoy in these types of games, which is like progressing their character, growing their character, getting better gear, having loot that like actually matters and feels important and impactful. But when you have this economy that's like super inflated, it ends up being that you get to that point where it's really hard to get an upgrade much faster, and then the longevity kind of dies for the game until you're making like new builds and extra builds, which is fine right now because there's a lot of people, this is their first like loot league or whatever, loot explosion league, where they probably in the past didn't have a chance to try out a ton of different builds. So like, oh great, now I have the money to try all these different builds. But then eventually you're gonna run out of builds, and like you're gonna have like maybe 3-4 new builds every single league that you want to try out, and you just hit that wall again. So that's kind of like the consequence of having these super inflated leagues, in my opinion. But I think where Path of Exile 2 kind of hits the nail on the head this league is that it feels like, because as a result of the temple being really good, everything in maps just gives money. So it's like that's the part that is like really good that people don't realize. People think the inflation is why they're having a lot of fun. I don't think that's why they're having a lot of fun. I think they're having a lot of fun because anything that they do rewards loot and rewards money. Any mechanic that they do, whether it's breach, whether it's ritual, whether it's expedition, whatever it might be, they're earning money and actually progressing. Whereas before, they felt like they weren't progressing because it was very hard to get that level of like money. So hopefully they take that and I think it will kind of be like that a little bit more as we get more and more like further into the game with more content, with more things that are valuable for people, kind of like in Path of Exile 1, where there are a lot of different mechanics that do reward money. which I think we'll get there. And then when it comes to Mirage, I I wonder. Like I agree with what Cal says that this is like such a fun mechanic. I'm really enjoying Mirage so much. It is like yeah, it is the league that I have enjoyed the most for sure in however long like the recent past. And it's not because I dropped a mirror. To be honest, that mirror that I dropped, I'm not even using it. I put it in a display case. So people are like, "Oh, you dropped a mirror, league's over." Like, not really. I'm not using it. It's just gonna be a commemorative first natural mirror drop that I'm just leaving there. So I'm still going through the grind like everybody else is, and I just made a new character. But when it comes to Mirage, I wonder how it's gonna be long term because I hope it doesn't end up being a case where if you're running maps, it feels like you're dumb for not running it if it does go core. I don't know if it will go core because it's
There's
just
no way, right? It can't because of that.
yeah, it's just like how about you take your map mechanic that gives you a bunch of loot and you double it? So when that happens, it's like, wait a second, why wouldn't I just run this with every single map mechanic that I'm running? So I don't know. We'll see if it goes core. I feel like it might not in its current state, but I don't know what you think, Jorgen, about that.
Probably, I don't think it'll go core. Just on it's somewhat of a really so the league itself, like the Mirage mechanic, the way that it feels to me is like it's there, but the real change is like the underlying nuts and bolts and that how the end game works, the ground loot mechanics. Those are the things that feel like the significant change. Like from my perspective, the amount of skills that they added in, just the exceptional gems, are like chef's kiss. I've been waiting for holy skills for so long. Like holy like I'm already trying to come up with a way to make a general's cry holy hammer build because I'm that lazy. I want to automate holy hammers hitting the whole screen, and I'm gonna figure it out. The POB's in progress, and then I'm like, oh, CWS, we can do that and make it even crazier this league with being able to, use the coins to add on extra skills and things like that, or support gems and things. But I feel like Mirage itself probably won't go core because, like similar to other leagues, it's just sort of a layer on top of things. But the real change is how the end game progression actually works, and I feel like that's the main focus. But like, it's the first time we've seen them in a very long time just go, hey, this is what's fun. And none of this, I don't know if you guys are across the term the vision. That that particular term that comes up every now and again. Like going back to Calandra, because I was there when like I think it was like 40% of the player base just like left the game overnight almost in Calandra, and there was like maybe 5 builds that worked because they amped the game up so badly with Archnem. Just people just went, nah, that's it, we're walking. They removed ground loot, like the game just felt bad to play. And so seeing them take the totally opposite approach means that there's a pretty significant mindset change over in GGG from what I can see in the best possible way. And I think that's what we're really seeing. Like Mirage is there and it's great. It probably isn't going to go core, but the underlying base of what they're doing, the game just feels as an overall so much more fun and rewarding. And like we're moving away from that. There has to be a friction mechanic, and let's just give the player what they want: fun and endorphin hitting loot drops and tinks at the end of the day. More tinks equals more fun. And I think it's great. Like in all the years, I think like we are in some sort of a golden age of PoE again, which is like I thought that last time Chris Wilson was talking about how he was adding Flask automation into the game, and that was such a game changer that you could have automated Flask instead of Piano King because the community was like, hey, we don't want to click more buttons, and people using paddle pop sticks on 1 through to 5 so they didn't have to so it's a really interesting position to see PoE 1 in now, and I'm interested to see how this mentality sort of echoes in a PoE 2, because there's definitely, like you said, that it's the loot drops is what's making PoE 2 more fun and bringing more people in and whatnot. But there needs to be a balance between hyperinflation and specific mechanics that overdrop loot that inflate the market as an overall. And wherever that blend sits, I think PoE 1's on the right point of it now. That probably needs to echo over into PoE 2, and then sort of build out the endgame system there. But that's my thoughts on it. It's very interesting. I haven't seen this sort of behavior from GGG in a long time, and I sort of like it.
Well, I think I'm sure you guys both. I don't know if Rabbit watched it, but Jung did a dev interview recently, and it wasn't with Mark and Jonathan. We need watching that interview is like showing, in my opinion, like some of the mind shifting that you just alluded to. That something's changing internally. Like that interview was awesome. And it shows that they're very it's not just people like there's always that comment of like they don't play the game. No, they like very clearly like are passionate and play this game all the damn time. And it's not just Mark and Jonathan making decisions. There's some really good and passionate players behind the scene that are making these developer decisions. And yeah, it I don't know. GGG listens. They may be slow to respond sometimes because they got a lot on their plate, but they're trying. And I think this is a big step.
That claim is always so ridiculous to me. In my personal opinion, I've never played a game, both PoE 1 and PoE 2, where it's more apparent that they are obviously playing their own. Like, I don't think I've ever played a game where it's more obvious that they are actually playing their game. And like, that's ridiculous to me. People have this like candy word sometimes where everything just needs to be perfect or otherwise I'm mad. And like, yes, obviously, like especially with them after the whole PoE 1 and PoE 2 thing, and they still trying to find their footing. Yes, there's gonna be fuck ups. There's gonna be stuff that obviously apparently wasn't tested or whatever. But that claim is like so ridiculous to me because we're so spoiled. That is what we always say here. It's like we're so fucking spoiled. It's insane.
What are the name of those two devs in that interview?
Octavian and Andrew.
Octavian and Andrew, yeah. That was an awesome interview.
Yeah, we are spoiled. We really are. I've coming from a Korean MMO landscape where you literally are talking to a brick wall because you're not the target audience. You're the Korean players are the target audience. I'm like, this is amazing. I feel like everything that I say actually potentially could have input into the game, and they're actually listening.
Yeah, or like Blizzard, where they talk down to you like a child, like, "Hey, no, we know what's better for you. We trust us. You're wrong." Like GGG is very unique. So,
and then walk back that 6 years later.
Yeah, exactly. Or the dev just leaves, and then everything changes, and then they start ripping off ideas from other ARPGs that they should have done in the first place. But no, it's always been interesting with the community with Path of Exile. Like there tends to be an element of the community that is a pitchfork angry mob, and it doesn't matter what GGG does, any change that they make, like I see it with builds in particular. Every single league, like doing league starter videos for as many years as I've been doing it now, I remember when I first started, like if you recommended a build that in the patch notes had any sort of change, like any change in the patch notes equals nerf and build is no longer playable, according to many people. But like for everyone that's sort of here, when you look at a build, like they might make some adjustments and changes, but it doesn't necessarily always kill the build unless it's like, was it Bama was it last league or whatever? In PoE 1, that one did get killed for some reason. Who knows why? But like the default position is single patch note change. It's riot time. Like we're going to start an angry mob and fires and pitchforks and flaming arrows, and people just sort of got to calm down a little bit in respect to that. And it's like, okay, well they make changes and it's normal, and and some people play the same build every single league and they go, oh, my build's dead now. It's like, well, there's a lot of builds in both games. So you can probably pivot or just readjust your approach and still play. Like, I know people who still play carrion golem to this day. And that's all they play every league, no matter what change is made in the game. They're still playing carrion golem until the end of time. So, yeah. people just got to chill out a little bit when they read the patch notes, I feel, these days.
Mm-hmm. And I think we do, like, I mentioned this in a previous podcast, but I feel like people do over exaggerate a little bit when they're like, GGG is just going to nerf everything into oblivion. It's going to be unplayable. I'm like, that has definitely happened, but, like, and I acknowledge it, but I think that we overestimate or like the negative just sits in our mind so much that it always feels like they nerf everything into like unplayability, which most of the time doesn't happen. Like when it happens, it hits super hard and it sticks in people's minds, and it's like, yeah, they just nerf everything to the ground every single time, which is definitely not the case. And I'd say the majority of the times it doesn't nerf to the ground. It's just that it becomes a balanced build that both people from the previous league were like super tired of playing, so they don't want to play it anymore. And then also it's like a lot weaker, but still not to a point of unplayability or not being viable. It's just that it's not overpowered. And it's like crazy because the last time I mentioned that, people just completely ignored the part where I said, "Oh, I acknowledge that they do it." They're like, "Yeah, Miso's such a white knight." So yes, I do acknowledge that they do it, but I don't think it's as often as people think it is.
In my opinion, it feels worse in PoE 2, and I'm tired of using the early access tag because I feel like it's a valid excuse at times. But I feel like in this situation, like when you look at skills like Magma Barrier, Arctic Armor, Wind Dancer, Bira's, like all of these things that, like you said, the extremes, right, that make us feel bad when you take that core thing and it's changed to unusable. That happens a lot more because it's an early access game and players are doing things with things that GGG was not intending them to do. Like that's going to happen a lot more in like a 1.0 or 0.1, 0.2 versus 3.28, right? So it feels a lot worse in PoE 2 right now just because I genuinely don't think GGG was intending Arctic Armor and Wind Dancer to be offensive skills that people were AFKing Simulacrum with or one-shotting Uber Arbiter with and stuff, right? Like, that's not what their intended goal was. And when they gut those in, over half their damage, it feels unplayable to the people who are playing it, but, yeah, that just comes with the early access territory, sadly. And those extremes, I count those as I take those out of the equation in my opinion. Those are extreme outliers. Those are going to happen because, yeah.
It's like it's rather than nerfing the ability, which I mean, I still don't like the way that they've done, with Magma Barrier and Bayros and stuff like that. I wish they stayed, but it is more of a vision thing versus like this skill is overpowered, so we're just going to completely destroy it.
Exactly. Yes.
It's like this build does not fit like what we want for the game.
Yeah, exactly.
The other side of this is right now it's a target-rich environment for development. So you look at how many classes and how many ascendancies are in the game and the skill system that's currently in the game as well. We're missing whole ascendancies within the existing classes that are in there, and let alone we're only at 50% of the classes that are supposed to come in, or even fewer than that. So for me, Templar is is what I'm holding out for. I want flails and shields and retaliation. But GGG just doesn't like automation builds, which is why Wind Dancer was problematic. If you guys are across the old Ward Loop setups in PoE 1, that shenanigan, the fact that they even let that go past one league is crazy because, yeah, that shouldn't have even existed, and people just broke the game to make.
I tried it in 0.2 or in 0.4 with Iron Ward. It wasn't good.
Yeah, heartbound loop chaining. That was when alt gems were in. Yeah, that was fantastic. But I played it. It was insane. You're essentially immortal and you could take everything down with one button click. But yeah, they don't like that. I don't think they like CWS too much in PoE 1. And RF, how are they going to implement RF in PoE 2? I think they're really. I have a view that they're probably going to bolt that into the ascendancy and lock it. That way it can't be used in multiple ascendancies, so it's a little bit more limited. But yeah, RF is a new problem unto its own self.
That's a good one. I haven't seen the clip in forever, but people talk about all the time that GGG said that RF is coming, but it would be different than how it was implemented in PoE 1. And I've always wondered what that meant. And that is a good solution to RF. Like, if you want to keep the core identity without, like, because, like, I've always wondered, like, how are you going to change it without ruining it for everyone who loves RF and PoE 1? And that is. I see that is the most likely thing I've heard so far. Ascendancy is a good choice for that.
I mean, we can ask the RF, the master of RF Pox. He says he thinks it's gonna be like, you can use RF by consuming 3 endurance charges, and you can use it for 5 seconds, and afterwards your character dies.
Yeah.
That's a real chaos theory right there, but yeah, it's true. They haven't done like the whole like was it totem thing requiring X number of charges and stuff is. I think stuff like that is a bit too over the top. Like they got to sort of peel back on the what was it, the combo setups a little bit, and just sort of let people have a bit more fun with that in that respect. But like I'd love to see Shield Crush come into the game and all that sort of stuff. Right now, the skill series in PoE 2 feels like there are a lot of builds out there, but it feels very limited with the way that they're sort of locking skills to things like weapons and ascendancies and classes, and it just doesn't allow for as much creativity as what it could be if they sort of moved back in the direction of how they approached it in PoE 1. And there's probably reasons for that just around like the design methodology that they're going with and whatnot. But if they move away from that friction sort of locking things up, like heralds can't be used with spells, with all that sort of stuff, it's just, if they allowed for that, then there's just a lot more combination that you can play with to get even more builds out of the game with far fewer skills, but more combinations that cross over with one another. So hopefully that's something that they look at. I'm hopeful 0.5 is just this enormous balance pass that's going to totally, I reckon it will be to an element. I think it's going to be an absolutely enormous amount of changes mechanically to how the actual end game works, and then beyond that is how the skill systems work and things like that. And I don't know if that's cope or not, but it'd be really good to see if that was the case, and they've had a bit of time to cook that up in the background too. So I don't know what you guys think about it, but
we had all kinds of we've had all kinds of coping on this already. We've had hopium, we've had overdoses of copium here. Yeah. The thing is that we had here on the podcast is we already had this a little bit about 0.4. So there is a cautious element to the hopefulness that we have, because we already did it a little bit for 0.4, and then I wouldn't say like 0.4 disappointed or whatever. I don't think 0.4 was like at all a disappointing thing. It was just there was some stuff that needs to be figured out in the future, and I think at the time I used the analogy like it seemed a little 0.4 seemed a little bit like the car wasn't really driving well, and we got a new stereo instead of new wheels or something. We got like a cool car stereo and we can listen to banging music now, but the car, like, we might have needed some new wheels or something. So it did seem like a little bit like that, but I still think that 0.3 and 0.4 have been the best through updates. I would still put 0.3 maybe a little bit in front of 0.4, but yeah, for sure. And so there is this cautious element, but 0.5, once again, putting all that aside, it is going to hit us, I think. There is so much time now in between as well, because we said it as well. The Druid was probably already done a little bit. Most likely, there wasn't really too much they still had to do for the Druid for 0.4. And apart from that, and apart from the League mechanic, there's not too much they had to do in 0.4. Just like speaking from an outside perspective, I don't know shit about devs and game making or whatever. So yeah, one would think they have a lot of power behind 0.5 now, and there has been a lot of time behind this and a lot of stuff they can implement. So yeah, the hopes are high. I think, Cal, you wanted to.
Oh yeah, no, I'm like on the full hype train. Like for those exact reasons. Like 0.4 probably had a lot more to it originally that just barely got axed because it was supposed to have the Endgame rework, right? So 0.5 is just going to have a lot cooked up for it. I'm assuming we're getting new ascendancies and new classes. Like it to me though, it's not even new ascendancies. Like obviously I want new skills and more stuff like that, but to me, I just really hope we get a bunch of new items and like ways to build builds from gear and itemization. That's the thing I'm noticing with PoE 1 right now is like, holy fuck, there are so many jewels. Like, oh my god, there are so many jewels. Like, oh my god, there are so many jewels. And then you have cluster jewels that can like have so many different setups and like ways you can modify your build with cluster jewels. That's just jewels. And then you have like a bazillion uniques that are all so build defining to where like you have these layers to your build where you have like you just got the maps and you can the build online, and then you have like the mid tier where you just got your Indigon online, and then you have like the layer like there's the and then it ends like 20 steps later with a mage blood. It's like that's all from items. Like the passive tree doesn't start changing anymore beyond that outside of like maybe optimizing a few jewel slots or making the attributes a little bit better. But it's all the optimization comes from gear. And that's where like I'm starting to realize like you can hit your build like when you're playing PoE 2 like unless it's like every piece is like a mirror item, you're getting your build online gear wise pretty early on, and then you're just like minor optimizations from like stats, but you're not like buying a new 100 div jewel, you're not buying a new 50 div jewel next that lets you enable this next item, and that's literally all itemization. It has nothing to do with passives or ascendancies or weapon types or skill gems. It's all in the itemization, and that's where I am hopeful for 0.5 is we get a lot of new ways to customize builds via gearing. Because yeah, sorry, rambly.
I agree. I agree with that. So there's a big difference between how endgame builds work in PoE 1 versus PoE 2, and it's sort of like if you were to map curves, the curve, or sorry, not the line or distance that you travel in PoE 1 is sort of flatter, but sort of you hit that end game point, there's a fair bit more progression you need to make to actually push your build, and the tiering from like say 60 to 70, 70 to 80, 80 to 90 to 95 plus, because it's more obtainable sooner in PoE 1. It's very different, and you're always tweaking and tuning and slightly adjusting things, and you're changing and shifting the way that your build mechanically works because of that gearing aspect. PoE 2, you can basically just like get to level 80, slap on your whatever you've got, your build's online. That's it. And then you can farm to 90. Once you get to 90, okay, YOLO, whatever, next build. It sort of just feels like that progression curve is very superficial. And that's where a lot of the end game drop off is. And partly that's because the end game in PoE 2 is incomplete. And that's one of the issues. There's obviously a lot of gear that's not in the game that will be added in, skills, things like that. But the combo play takes away the nuance of actually refining your build out and stretching it out for a longer period. And that's like, some would argue that that's the difference between PoE 1 and 2 as well, where PoE 2 is somewhat more simplistic because it's targeted at an audience that potentially doesn't want to do that min-max exercise of going through the individual numbers. And you can still do it, but at a differing degree. And that's why you can reach your end game build prospect sort of earlier. But it depends on how you look at it and the type of player that you are. Personally, I like the way that's done. Like, I actually like that skill gems have XP in it in PoE 1, because it means like you've actually got to progress your gems and then sort of work through it. Whereas in PoE 2, it's just like, level up to this level, slap on next gem, power boost. Superficially having everything just scale at gem level on weapons and gear, I find to be like a really dumb solution to trying to actually, build a system that balances a build out as opposed to having the right gearing. And I think part of that's limitations and even the skill tree. So the skill tree is nowhere near as impactful as the PoE 1 skill tree, and exactly that for cluster jewels and things like that, which they'll probably add into PoE 2 at some point. But and this is just part of, again, it comes back to this early access sort of argument. Like, it's still figuring out what it is at the end of the day, and it'll continue to change until it gets close to that 1.0, and then it'll change past that. So yeah, that's my take on it. It's just a very different feel between the two games currently.
I think that it really does come back to this idea of approachability. And I think that a lot of the decisions do revolve around that. Even going back to our conversation about like weapons type, like skills being tied to certain things, like weapons specifically. It's like I don't know how much you see like conversations about the game from like a new player perspective, but I know that I'm talking to a new player when they talk about, hey, what is a good monk build? Like they come in and ask me, hey, what's your favorite monk build? Because they don't equate the weapon type or the skills to like the build. They frame the build around the class. So it's like the moment you get more and more like flexible with like, oh, these skills can be used with any weapon, any whatever, that's where it takes it to like a next level where a lot of these people might see it as like being a little bit too overwhelming, because that's just not how games are conventionally done in with these like RPGs. They're usually pretty limited to like skills are tied to classes, and those classes use certain weapons. So it's like whenever somebody asks me, hey, what's a good monk build? I know that they're asking, hey, what they're actually asking is, hey, do you have any good quarterstaff builds that you'd recommend to me? So it's like the moment that you get these things of like complexity and like, and this is the hard part that GG has to be able to toe the line between, where it's like the traditional classic PoE 1 players want this customizability. They want this ability to go into PoE and tinker with these things and be like, there's a million ways for me to scale this build. And it's like a situation of like, I need to figure out how to do it, rather than like here's exactly how you can do it, and this is like the most simple and efficient path. As opposed to like what PoE Need 2 is trying to do potentially is like, we want like that a little bit, but we also want the ability for like the newer player to come in and not feel overwhelmed and have a little bit of an more on rails experience, which is like whenever a new player asks me like, what class do you recommend you play, what play style, what build, I just say go play druid, go play talismans, because right now talismans are very on rails. Like if you want to play a wolf build, you just throw in all the wolf skills and you got a wolf build. You go in and it's like, if you want to play a bear build, you just go play bear, throw in all the bear skills, which isn't really the case for any other class at the moment. So it's like they have to find that kind of like balancing act between like feeling like they're making the game too simple for the PoE 1 person who is used to all this customization and scaling and diversity in the ways that you can actually make your build, and the casual player or like the newer player who is just coming in for the first time and just not feeling like they're hit with a brick wall, which is a lot of like what I'm having conversations with like my chat as well, because every single new PoE 1 league, there is a number of people who like want to try out PoE 1, and that is one of the top 3, I'd say, concerns / like things that prevent them from playing the game, which is just the complexity and how difficult it seems to approach PoE 1.
Yeah, funny enough, I just had my friend I used to do my old Heroes of Storm podcast with come to PoE 2, and he likes bows in every game. He likes, like, he's always a hunter or a ranger or something, and so by default he starts playing Pathfinder and he starts with a bow build. But of course he's playing it on he doesn't play it in the league. He's playing it on standard because that's what every new player does. They don't realize the difference between league and standard, so they just go into standard. And me and my friends tell him, "Oh, you're missing out on the league mechanic. You should go remake it on the league." And we had to explain to him, "Oh, you might want to try this on like a witch hunter or a tactician." And he's like, "But I want to play a bow build." And it was like, immediately it was like, that disconnect was right there. Like, he wanted to play a bow build, so he has to play it on a Pathfinder or a ranger. That's a very real mentality for new players.
Right now, I just want Deepest Tower back in the game. They can do whatever they want in 0.5 as long as they get Deepest Tower back. And then I can play any build I want to play on the warrior on that basis. So, Spellcaster, no worries, Deepest Tower. Cast on Crit Comet, Deepest Tower's got you covered. Like, it's my jam.
Rest in peace, Deepest Tower.
It's
It would
such
like
a cool item.
it should be back. They removed a lot of items in that patch that would be like fine now. Like they had that one Inferno class belt, right? Was that what it was called? The one for the Smith of Katava that got removed in that patch. Like
Okay.
there's a lot of really good
yeah.
items, and they should come back.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Yeah.
in 05.
Also, before I forget, I actually had one more thing I want to talk about. I think when we were talking about the content 0.5, they haven't really been they should be cooking for this because it Druid it seemed like they didn't have that much to work on and league mechanic whatever. I saw a comment in chat earlier about how like they said they spent most of 0.4 on like working on Druid. I think they mentioned specifically the problem with Druid was with the animations. So I'm assuming the animation team and the rigging team probably had a lot of work to do, but the other people who were actually developing classes probably were twiddling their thumbs a little bit because they were probably done with that. So that's, I think that's one of the other reasons why potentially 0.5 we might be getting a pretty big update, because while they were working on Druid most of the time, I think it was just a specific subsection of the GG team that was working on it.
Oh, do we think we're getting the next campaign act in? Because that would introduce Twilight Order, and that would be Templar, most likely.
It depends on if GGG can set it up in a way where Act 5, because I assume they're not going to do the final act until 1.0. If they did anything, it would be maybe Act 5, and Act 5 would have to line up in a way where the XP ends roughly where the interlude acts end. They'd have to cut the interludes and introduce Act 5. So that's the only way I see it coming early, if that lines up well for them. Otherwise, it won't come until 1.0 and they'll get like both together.
Yep.
I think that it's possibility that 0.5 or not, excuse me. Yes, 0.5 could replace the interludes with Act 5. I think that is a possibility.
Yeah.
I would love that. That would be amazing. I think also before 0.4 or before Act 4 was released and everything, also like a lot of the discussion around like needing more endgame was also around like, does adding an act, is that the priority when we want more endgame? And I still think it does, yeah. Because having an act and having all that content that an act entails like that, and we've seen it in Act 4, it might not mean like, oh, this means that this is going to be on top of the end game now, but it has so many other implications for new bosses, for new maps and whatever, and also just like mechanics, depending on what the act might have or something. Like for example, Act 4 is literally named King's March. There was obviously an opportunity there to maybe do something, or it could come. I don't know. So I do think I don't think we're getting Act 5 for some reason, because I don't know if it's like something they, like Cal said, they want to push towards 1.0, and then we maybe get it like in one of the next two updates, and then we get Act 6 with 1.0. Yeah, I would be happy to lose interludes, because interludes were fun now for one playthrough, but I wouldn't be sad to see them go, just like I wasn't sad seeing the cruel acts go. So I think it would be amazing. It would maybe even cut down campaign just a little bit. I think campaign can be cut down in terms of playtime just a tiny bit. I think the campaign is amazing. I think people shitting on the campaign sometimes has nothing to do with the campaign not being good, but more likely that it sometimes just feels a little bit dragged on, especially when you play it like on a fresh character for a certain amount of time, or at a like in one sitting, basically. I think the campaign is fine if it just like gets a little bit less of the dragginess factor that is definitely there in the interludes, because the interludes feel a little bit too long at the moment, I think. But that's also because you're like done with the acts and you're like, oh, now I have to do this extra thing that will never stay in the game. So it does feel a little bit like a chore. Otherwise, I think the campaign is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm on the
Is
same
it-
boat as Cal. I don't think it's going to come in 0.4 or 0.5. I think if anything, Act 5 might come out 0.6, and then we get 1.0 in. And I think all of us are under the assumption 1.0 is coming after ExileCon. So that is when the last act is going to be implemented.
Well, they did. The first ExileCon was 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago. No, 8 years ago. I remember when I went. It was awesome. The beer and chicken place was pretty rad. There may have been a few
You
of
had me
us.
at beer and chicken. Holy.
I'll tell you some ExileCon stories. So we saw the line of people in the Aotearoa Square, and myself and my best mate went, and we were just like, "Oh, is anyone around?" And there was this beer and chicken place, and they like specialized in Heineken and obviously fried chicken.
Oh,
And there was like Americans, Finnish guys there, like everyone from everywhere. There's just like all these Path of Exile players in there. And we just went, you know what? Instead of like waiting in the line like everyone else, we're just going to get drunk, and then we'll go and pick up our tickets after everybody else has picked all their tickets up. And we did exactly that. We were there for like maybe 4 hours, and then we ended up stumbling through the barricades to go and pick up our ExileCon packs, which was great. But yeah, it's so then the next one was obviously 3 years ago now, and that's so that they're upping the ante on this. So the fact, and every time that they've actually done an ExileCon has been when a significant announcement's occurred. So this one I take it as they're probably, yeah, it's going to be 1.0, and even potentially something big with PoE 1 maybe, but its a main focus center stage is going to be PoE 2 and where that's going. So it has to be a 1.0. And they said that they weren't going to potentially have all the classes released with 1.0 anyway. So, and I think they said, pretty much the game was supposed to be finished originally on their original timeline by the end of last year.
Yep.
And it's sort of dragging out. They have to sort of draw a line in the sand, because that's when they'll start adding in, the last of the carryover content and mechanics from PoE 1, and then we start getting new leagues in PoE 2. And I think that's the other thing that we're missing is we're currently still just getting replicated content from PoE 1 and nothing really very new in PoE 2. Like, it's new but not new, if that makes sense. So it doesn't have its own identity just yet. And I think it's where it's sort of that early access argument comes into play there, because there's no league challenges, there's no progression systems that preclude to it having its own content and lore building. And once I feel like we get that, I think we'll notice a huge significant change in the direction and trajectory of the game further beyond the 1.0. But getting to the 1.0 right now is the hard basket challenge. But it'll be interesting to see what they come out with.
I think if we're at ExileCon and Jonathan's on stage and says, after this in 2 weeks, we are launching patch 0.7 and not 1.0, someone at marketing is in a lot of trouble. Like, there's no way it's not 1.0, right? Like, that would be crazy. Because like you said, it's not like with like how Blizzard used to do BlizzCon every year, or like some of these conventions are yearly. This is the third ExileCon ever. Like, these are special events. There's like, and I go back to what you said. I've been saying this entire time that I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if this is like completely wild, but I wouldn't be surprised if they also announced 4.0 for PoE. It's next expansion or whatever. I don't know if like next expansion means 4.0, but like a very big PoE 1 update is like, I would not be surprised at all. Like, we got both.
There's
Path of
something
Exile Immortal.
Oh no, I was about to say that. Did you guys serious note, have you guys ever tried that? Well, at both Exile Cons, they had the PoE mobile game, and I was about to say exactly that. Yeah. And potentially they may release the PoE mobile game, and I gotta say, it is cool, but also not great, and it's probably why they never released it. And I remember when we tried it, like, you'd have the iPhone that it was installed on. The phone was basically a mini inferno. It was an incinerator in your hands. Like, that game was just
Yeah,
lighting those phones up. But you never know, that might be the big announcement. So you might be on that one, Cal. It's 0.7 announced, and then, hey guys, by the way, Don't you guys like
Oh
phones?
no.
Mhm.
Oh,
That would
no,
be
that's
terrible.
so funny.
0.7 and don't you guys like
Li-
phones?
That's why when they
who's-
do it in New Zealand, so you can't hear the collective outcry in all the rest of the world because it's gonna be like, oh my god.
That's so funny.
Someone,
That's why
someone
that's why they do it so far away.
pack a red shirt, guys, just so you're ready for that day.
Yeah.
That's funny.
mean,
Yeah. Go
I think what it's gonna be is it's gonna be mostly PoE 2 focused, and then at the end they might flash like a graphic for like PoE and then like 4.0 or whatever it might be. It's just like a big, just like whoa, and then like that's kind of where they leave it.
Well, they may
So-
do the. Oh, so they might do the big elephant in the room announcement, which is re-rigging the whole PoE 1 engine
Mhm.
to the PoE 2 engine.
Yep.
And so I feel like I know you guys would have seen the initial announcement. The two games were supposed to be amalgamated together.
Mhm.
I feel like this may be coming full circle at some point, and potentially if the first game can be re-rigged and sort of aligned with PoE 2 in any way, then that might actually still happen after that 1.0 point. And that could actually be one of the announcements. And by the way, guys, 4.0, we're finally exercising WASD, re-rigging PoE 1. And that, like, if you sort of think about it from an announcement standpoint with an ExileCon, that would be a huge win for both sides of the player base,
Yes.
like massively.
Mhm.
That would be huge. There are so many people who, like, my number one feedback I see from my PoE 2 audience is no WASD, no me. Like, that's literally the number one feedback from my PoE 2 viewers is no WASD, no me. Until that happens, and Miso's got on this rant
on
many
the
times that
soapbox
it's not going to
all
fix
the time.
anything for those people, but that is the number one statement I see for PoE 1 player or PoE 2 players is the WASD is the reason.
This is a topic that I talk about very often on my stream, almost every night at this point, about people, at least whenever I play PoE 1, people always come and it's like, oh, no WASD. There's two things, right? I think that if they implement it into Path of Exile 1, they really need to be super intentional with it because, like, I don't know if you've played Last Epoch, Jorgen, with when they did the WSD change. I went in there and I immediately swapped it back to mouse and keyboard, or like the point and click, because it just felt terrible. Because the game wasn't designed for it. Like, and that's the same thing with Path of Exile 1. It's not designed for it. Even if they change the model
clunky.
rigging, even if they change the model rigging, in my opinion, the fact that they don't have like fluid situation where like when you move and attack, your character's gonna stop in Path of Exile 1. And like in Path of Exile 1, for the most part, a lot of characters are not moving with like they are moving with the mouse, like the mouse, but like they're using movement skills to move. So at that point, it like doesn't even make like holding two buttons down plus pressing a movement skill and spamming it. It's gonna be like it's gonna feel really, really bad. So they I don't know. I feel like in order to actually make it work, they need to change something at a fundamental level, which I don't know if people are going to like because it's going to change the whole feel of the entire game, at least for the PoE1 players. So it needs to be like really, really good for it to actually work out. And the other thing is, I think that Path of Exile 2 Path of Exile 1 getting WSD is going to be like a high guard moment where, you know, Jeff Keighley comes out, welcome to High Guard. We got WSD and PoE1 now. People are going to rush in and then they're going to realize PoE1's not for me. Like, I think the part about the wall that I was talking about earlier, where it feels like there's so much stuff to learn and you just don't want to learn it, people are going to feel that the moment that they get it. I don't think a lot of the Path of Exile 2 players, the new ones especially, are going to go into it and feel like, wow, this is like amazing. They're going to hit that wall and be like, I don't want to learn it. Because I talked about this the other day and Rabbit said he had a little bit of this too, but these days, I feel like gamers kind of walk into games and they feel like they want to know everything about the game before they get into the game. And if they can't do that, they just feel overwhelmed. And that is the situation with Path of Exile 1. And I think that WSD is going to be a high guard moment when they do implement it. And a lot of the PoE2 players are just going to fall off right afterwards.
The problem with PoE 1 is the difference with PoE 2 and 1 is PoE 2 is much more approachable for people who want to sort of create their own builds. PoE 1, and I'm sorry to say this, requires borderline an encyclopedic knowledge of how PoB works. Like, for me, it's like 8 years or plus. I think I've been playing since closed beta, so that'd be 12, 13 years of game knowledge over that period where, like, I know the mechanic, of every single item, interaction, how to solve 4x, and I still don't know enough. Compared to other creators that have created elaborate stacking systems and all sorts of stuff. And that's the biggest barrier with Path of Exile 1 is, like, if you think you're going to walk in the door and just like make a build, it's not going to work the way that you think it's going to work. And then you end up having to follow a build guide, and that turns people off from the game. And then even when you put out build guides, like, you say to people, like, there's an element of where you have to actually go and do research, but people just want like things built on Rails. And then they're like, oh, build is bad, doesn't work. And it's like, no, you need to like learn how this works before you. And that arguably happens in PoE too. They're like, slap all the gear on, it's not working. Yeah, exactly.
On
the
most simplest of builds imaginable, that happens. Like on the builds where it's like you have entangle, you put four support gems into entangle, you press mouse 1, stuff shoots out, it damages stuff. It's like so yeah, there's always gonna be that. Sorry for it.
It's funny, you just kind of described my entire like existence with PoE 1. It's always been like I don't want to play it because approaching it as someone who wants to just make their own build is literally impossible. And this is like the first league I'm just following One Mana Left's Hierophant Mjolnir build this league. I'm literally just following it. But I didn't really watch any guides for it. I didn't really watch any and get the information I needed to. So as I've been like just kind of rebuilding his like day 1 PoB, his day 2 PoB, I've been running into these moments where it's like, why is this not feeling good? Why is this bricked? And like I have to like problem solve my way through it by looking at other people's PoBs, figure out where my numbers are off and stuff. And it would literally be impossible for me to make this build on my own in any way, shape, or form without an encyclopedia of knowledge. I can barely get through the build copying other people's PoBs. That's how like complicated these endgame PoE 1 builds get. And like you literally can't just make your own build in PoE 1. You have to just copy one. I don't think there will ever be a world where I make my own PoE 1 build ever. I think I will always, this might just be my build I play forever, and I maybe change like Ball Lightning for like a different support gem, and like I add my own little like skill gem twist to it, but I will never be able to navigate build crafting in this game because it genuinely feels like at certain points, like there are just so many interactions that break off of just slight number tweaks, just fully stop working, just completely break builds, and these are like, the game is designed with these uber bosses, you need these interactions to be working right, because there's very few builds that can just reach these mathematical godhood numbers without layers and layers of mathematical multiplicative scaling to get there. And when like, especially when you're doing something like an Indigon build where it's just like, I think day 1 when I bought my first Indigon build, I bought one that was like at 56% of my mana. And I was like bricking my mana so fast, and like I was like, I can't figure out what's going on. I just like I needed to buy one that was like 50 to 52%. Like I just needed one that was lower. And then eventually learned that I needed to get a lower level support gem of like Lightning Warp. I was using level 20 and I went down to 8, and that like helped my mana a lot. It's like these little tweaks that like, they're just like, yeah. And it's, of course it's a low life build, but yeah, there's no way I'll ever make a PoE 1 build. Like I won't ever like get the knowledge for it. Like I don't see how I'll ever get that knowledge.
You just got to heat map and benchmark ultimately. Yeah, like what I'm doing, like I started doing it tonight, was trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I build a General's Cry build again? Because I haven't done that in like 20 leagues. And then I'm like, okay, well, I want to make Holy Hammer work. So I've got it started, but I need to go back and I'm like, well, this worked like this 2 years ago. This worked like this 12 months ago. when I played it, it did this. I need to go and have a look at my own guide from years ago. And then I need to go and have a look at the skill scaling to go, okay, how are people scaling it? Does that make sense? Can I add fire damage into it? And then I've got to get workable numbers in the POB to start, and then start scaling everything up somehow within the confines of POB. And then eventually I'll get to like 15 million DPS. And it'll be like, all right, now it's time to test. Fail the test, not calibrate for something that I didn't think about, and then have to problem solve that in the live while on stream. And then by the end of it, I'll have a build that works, but I'll be banging my head against the wall going, oh, I can't believe how hard this was. I could have just went to uni and studied a degree in something by the end of it all. But yeah, it is a challenge. It's definitely an acquired taste.
Yeah.
That's where it loses me, is because like those check marks you have to do. Like if you miss like an endurance charge box in POB or something, like it completely throws off the numbers and stuff, and just like it's a lot.
Yeah.
Don't ever put a POB out with Guardian and Pinnacle boss not ticked. People used to do that, and they go, bait build, bait, that's bait.
That's so funny. I am currently making a Spectral Shield Throw Elementalist, and I am the only person in Mirage playing Spectral Shield Throw Elementalist. So, well, I'll have to get back to you about how that's gonna go. But yeah, I'm doing exactly like what Jordan's saying: heat mapping, taking a look at other builds for inspiration, seeing what works on other builds, and kind of going off of that. There's nobody right now that's doing Elementalist Herald stacking Spectral Shield Throw, but it doesn't mean that I can't follow maybe like a dual strike Elementalist Herald stacker from 327. And that's the thing about like Path of Exile 1 too, is like the game doesn't change as drastically as PoE 2 does. You can take a look at stuff from 327, 326, 325, and for the most part, things are gonna work out unless there's been like a major, like specific change to that class or to that ability, which doesn't happen like, and it has to be like a huge change, which doesn't happen all that often, unlike Path of Exile 2, where it feels like every single patch we're playing a new game. Like every single update, like every single 0.0, like 0.4 to 0.5, 0.3 to 0.4, it kind of feels like in a way that things are just like brand new.
By the way, for your build, Nebulous. Trust me, bro. Nebulous and Overstack Red, trust me, 450% damage buff.
I'll take a look.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about what the PoE 2 endgame could use from PoE 1. And one of the things that I've been enjoying is just, like, obviously the Atlas is just so much better in PoE 1, but I like that, like, you can have 3 of them. So, like, I just, depending on my mood, I can just, like, I just click a button and, like, I just go to a different loadout and I can completely play the game very differently in mapping. And you don't really get that feeling in PoE 1 or in PoE 2, because like when you want to do different mapping, you don't really tweak your Atlas. You just kind of put in a tablet that makes Delirium spawn in the map, and you just go, right? But there's actual like identity to your farms, and there's a lot of like, yeah, there's just like an optimization, whether you want to do like Shaper influence or whatever. Like there's just so much more. I think like, and we know an Atlas overhaul is coming. I really, really hope it's extensive. I can't imagine it gets anywhere as close to PoE 1's on its first pass, but I love the diversity and how you can define your Atlas, and there's also just ways you can like optimize the league mechanics themselves a lot more. It's just super cool. So to me, the number one thing is like the Atlas overhaul needs to hit.
The big thing with that, the difference between the two is the level of control that you have in PoE 1 versus PoE 2. So PoE 2, you're sort of blindly traveling through biomes essentially that don't really have any major impact on the maps outside of whether or not you hit like a lineage gem drop point or a citadel. PoE 1, you have like so much option to control how you want to map. And so, you know, for me, I like doing Strand because I'm lazy and I like single linear maps. Other people have other particular maps, and those maps have the potential for different div cards to drop and things like that. That's what's currently missing from the endgame in Path of Exile 2 that makes it somewhat unsavory, is because you're just sort of almost blindly following as you go. And it's interesting sort of to think about, well, are they going to backtrack that design sort of philosophy and align it to something similar to PoE 1? And it's sort of the way that they've done PoE 1 sort of indicates, well, maybe they're testing something in PoE 1 that they're looking to implement, because they're aligning PoE 1 with the concepts in PoE 2 around the generic map tiles, essentially. But PoE 1 has all that control element that works really well. And I'd probably say, off the positive feedback that's been received from the changes in PoE 1, it's probably, there's a certain degree of confidence that that is definitely something that they're looking at in PoE 2. So it's really interesting to look at, because like PoE 2, like, that would mean they would be totally overhauling the whole mapping system entirely and scrapping it. And I think in a previous interview, Jonathan even said that they wouldn't rule out the fact that they may have to scrap entire mechanics to basically get PoE 2 to where it needs to be. And I think that's not a bad way to go, because currently the feel of PoE 2's endgame mapping is just not very satisfying. And I don't, like, when I play through it, I never feel like I have very much control as to how I'm farming the endgame. It's like the game is telling me what I need to do, not me dictating this is how I want to play. But I don't know what you guys think.
I don't think they're going to scrap the Infinite Atlas, personally. I think that they are pretty headstrong on it, because I don't think I think they really like this idea of like exploration or whatever. And in a way, kind of, they did implement a little bit of that into the PoE 1 and the new one, with the astrolabes, because you kind of can't stick on, or at least I think there might be a node or something like that that allows you to stick on it, but by default, you cannot stick on one map. You have to progress through a chain of different maps, which is kind of like the progressing through the Infinite Atlas type of situation. So I think they do like that idea about this thing where you have to move and like change, like, and you're not always running the same map in Path of Exile 2. And we talked about it last week, but I think that there is more choice nowadays, with at least this league, with grand projects actually being pretty dang common. You do have a little bit more agency to playing what map you want to actually play. But granted, I would like to see them add a little bit more, like maybe bringing in like a Orb of Horizons as like a terraforming orb to change like a map to like be one that's not Molten Vault or Temple or whatever, or Sun Temple, and being something that you might actually want to run and play.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about how I would change the Infinite Atlas, and the first thing I would like to see is, like, again, an Orb of Horizon, like maybe not even Orbs of Horizon, but like, if you can just use a currency, like, how we just got these new currencies where you put it on the Atlas and it like makes this area like the Templar or something, what are they called? They like cake the maps that you can do, like something like that, but you put it on a specific location. So if I'm about to do, like, if I want to do a single map over and over in PoE 2, I would use the currency on that location, and then it lets me run that map 10 times. And then after that 10 times, that location's depleted, and it forces you to move on. So you at least get some option of doing that. And I'm going to say this forever now. Grand Project should just be tower baseline. You clear a tower, it Grand Projects. Done. Like, I'm going to be on that, like... at this point, every single league, I am spam buying grand projects and spamming them in the towers. If that is how I am always playing, is that how is the best way everyone should play it? Probably just make it baseline. If everyone wants to be slamming towers if you go for a tower just a grand project it 99% of the time, maybe make it baseline eventually. But yeah, that's my thoughts.
I think the whole Infinite Atlas is very good for like in a PoE 2 specific universe. Basically, I think the idea behind it and what it actually seeks to achieve is, in my opinion, very, very good for PoE 2. And I think this comes once again back a little bit to the early access argument. There's just not enough meat on the bone yet, I think. because I've criticized the Infinite Atlas before because the whole exploration part, which is set out to be the main goal of the Infinite Atlas, just for me isn't really there. I don't feel like I'm actually exploring these biomes, or I'm exploring like new sets of maps, or I'm going into this zone and this zone has like a specific modifier or whatever, or there's like a specific boss in this zone. So right now it just feels like I'm just doing these maps that I'm doing, and that's also why Cal's saying like everyone, or at least a lot of people are using Grand Project on every single map to get to that next area that has exactly that. You just want to go as far as possible, so you actually reach that area that has the stuff in it that you want. And I think we just need more of that stuff packed into the Atlas itself, so that everything that you do without like even a grand project needed or whatever is actually that progression that takes you to those steps, that you have an actual progression feeling towards these things. Right now it is just mainly centered around I need to get to a citadel fast. I need to get to a corrupted area next. When I'm like doing my Atlas, I have everything done. The Atlas is done. I've been in the league for 2 weeks or whatever. What I mainly do is I look for the anomaly bosses to have the to get a Garukans, or to get a Rakyada's Flow. Or the other thing that I'm doing, I'm looking for corrupted areas to cleanse them, to be able to farm the cleansed areas. That's basically it. And everything in between is just I want to get to that point. So I just want more stuff in there, so that already that stuff that I'm skipping now kinda already has some stuff that I want, that is gonna be like, oh, this is like a progression. This is like a progression. And I think that is, honestly, to get back to the point, I think that is why they did it in the system that they did now in Period 2, because this system that we have right now lends itself to have more stuff being packed on in between, without limiting yourself to certain things. Because they could say now, oh, there's a new biome on the Atlas where it's just gonna spawn like a, I don't know, like a new pinnacle boss, or it's there's so many things
The
you can do with
shaper
this, because
biome.
yeah, exactly. Or yeah, whatever. It's like oh, you have a 4-boot Maven now on this biome, and everyone rushes to that immediately. So yeah, I don't know. I really like the Infinite Atlas. It's just in a very free state. I don't know what to call it. Like in a very barren state so far, I think.
Yeah. So
I've referred to it as pre-alpha before.
Well, the Atlas is pretty much an echo of what how Delve works, but like a much more macro version of it. And the biomes are the problem. So the biomes currently don't really do very much, and that's the issue. So like, if there was something rewarding in farming a specific, like, water biome or grass biome, and there were specific drops and targetables within, like, for example, if there was unique items that only dropped in those biomes, then you would incentivize people to want to farm that particular content. And this is how it works in Delve. So like, different biomes have different types of fossils that drop, and right now have different weightings of the currency that you can make from them. So then you actually turn the end game into like, here's all these different quadrants. I can target, this grass biome if I'm going after this particular thing, and that, and so on and so on. And that gives it weighting and meaning. And then people are actually incentivized, okay, I want to go in that direction because there's a city biome in there, and I can get this from farming cities. And I feel like that's the thing that they were going after, because it's in the actual Atlas tree, but like, they just haven't quite fleshed that out very far. And then the obvious other one is like, if they add Delve to the game, I don't even care about the end game at that point, because I'm farming sulfite and I don't come out of Delve. Like, I'm just gonna be a degenerate that lives in the mines. That's that's my other take on it. Like, if they add Delve to the game, then like, I don't see the point of playing the rest of the end game outside of just getting sulfite generation, which makes sense what they did with the towers and the changes that they have made so far to date, to allow for resources to be generated from maps and regions and things like that. So that's really where my headspace is. I'm hoping, like, I've been going on about it for like X number of leagues. I was watching a few other videos, and everyone's like, "Oh, you said the word Delve Jorgen will be popping up soon, or something like that, with his conspiracy theories that Delve's coming." And like, I was like, "Oh, there's a bird over there. That's an omen that Delve is coming to Path of Exile too." Like, I'm like, Jesus, guys, it's not that bad. But
Awesome.
yeah. I think that's one of the things that are missing in Path of Exile 2 is something that has that progression and just like endlessness of it. And while the Atlas sort of tries, it's not at the same point as what that particular mechanic would provide, at least at this stage, if they added it in.
I always get
think
ads for. I always get ads for like, do you want to work in the Australian mines? You can make you can make so much money in like 6 months working in a mine in Australia. Is that like is there what's it with you in mines?
It's probably a
Delve's
correlation
goated,
there.
dude. Once you've been in the mines, you just get it. It's
You
it's
just-
the
yeah.
perfect place to be. And I think map identity would be huge. Like as a PoE 1 newbie, I just learned that certain div cards only drop from certain maps. Like
Yep.
imagine when we got div cards from PoE 2, if the worst maps had like some of the best div cards, you'd be more inclined when you're traversing the Atlas. Ooh, this map has a chance to
Oh, that
drop a
sounds
div card
terrible.
that
I
sells
don't
for
know.
2 divine.
I don't know about that
Wait,
one.
wait
Dude,
until
that's
you
how you get people wanting to stop skipping stuff. We're talking about
Wait.
skipping everything along the Atlas.
At
Wait
that point, you're
until you learn
forcing
about-
me
That's
to
how we
play
get
a
that.
bad map rather than incentivizing
You're not forcing me
me.
to play.
No, because you
in the
can-
world,
no,
you can make all maps good, then that's not a problem.
You
But
can-
the point
you
of it
can
is the
use
map
the-
identity.
You can use the seer to scry that from another map in Path of Exile 1. There you
Yes,
go,
you
Cal. You
can.
can look that up, scrying.
Yes.
So you can convert the div drop card to a favored map
Mhm.
if you have
Well,
a dark. I think it's a dark seer.
No more
pop-up
favorite
order.
maps.
Well, in order to have that in, you would have to have the basin of div cards dropping from certain maps to begin with. So
Yeah,
it starts with
there's a
that.
lot. There's a lot.
But
to
just saying,
unpack there.
you have to get loot. You have to get reasons for people to stop places if you want. If what we're trying to solve is people just mindlessly skipping ahead with grand projects, which I don't know if that's something that needs to be solved. I've been doing that since 0.1 because it's fun. It's fun to just go as far away as you can and just find all the fun shit. But if we're trying to solve like someone skipping all the maps, it's like A, make all the maps good. Like we've had this discussion 80 times now. Just get rid of the shit maps. But 2. If every map has like a gem on it that like somebody might want, then that helps a lot too.
If they give me Deepest Tower for farming C maps, I'll farm C maps all day long until my eyes fall out of my head. That's how much I want Deepest Tower.
It's a good item. Yeah, I saw some. I
What's
don't remember whose video I was watching. They were doing some form of farm. I was like, why are they doing it on this map? And he's like, oh, it's because this div card drops here. I'm just specifically doing my farm that's a little less efficient here, but I want this div card.
Well,
Would you
okay,
want
that's really
Deepest
cool.
Tower back in its like original state, like or in its original what it does, or what's the draw for you on Deepest Tower? Because we kind of
it-
got it again, right, with the constricting
Con-
command, but not really at the same time.
It sort of works the same, but it doesn't because it's the flat damage scaling that you get on Deepest Tower that makes it so enabling. I think it was like you used it on, what was it, your Thunderous Leap build or whatever it is originally?
Yeah, the
Mjolnir, yeah.
Mjolnir, the Thor, Mjolnir, the warping, yeah.
Yeah, and it was so building a like the big advantage of that particular item is you could slap it onto any class, and you could use almost any skill as long as you path down to those nodes, even spells, everything scaled with it, and it was just like you could take a really bad skill and you can make it actually work, and that was the beautiful thing about that item, and that's probably just an argument to say that skills need to be balanced better because if it's heavily reliant on an item to prop it up, then that's highly problematic, and that's a balance issue as well. But yeah, like I think
don't
it's on
know.
like Bone Cage on Warrior. I thought was pretty cool just for the lols, and it just totally enabled that build with trample toes and whatnot. So
I think like like when you put it like that, like yes, it sounds bad that you can have an item that enables these bad items, but the reverse is everyone using the Vertex right now with +4 all skills, and that's so much more fun and more balanced, right? The Vertex, not the Vertex, the Deepest Tower would at least enable builds like remember Biso last patch you tried doing a Shankgon build. Maybe maybe Deepest Tower would have helped enable that by giving it more flat damage, right? Like that Deepest Tower enabled those shit skills to be better, and like getting rid of it, like it needed to be tweaked a bit, but like we still have like the Vertex, which is like 10 times more boring, but like arguably more powerful. So
I'd
bring
tell you
back
what
the Deepest Tower.
I'll tell you what you do need in the game. 2 items. And it was actually in the original pathing tree for Path of Exile 2, and they removed it. It was in the Templar shield cluster. And it's the Aegis Aurora and Face Breakers.
Ooh,
If we got
Face
face
Breakers,
break, yeah, Face
yes.
Breakers, holy shit. The amount of builds that you can make with Face Breakers and PoE 2.
Facebreaker Thorns, dude. Oh my goodness, it'll be over.
Just who doesn't want to be a warrior and punch shit in the face with face breakers? That to me just seems like a good day had by all. Big shield face breakers, because I think you can still get can you get Lycosa Day in PoE 2? I think you can.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's funny that you mentioned, Shankgon and then also Facebreaker because it's maybe build of the week stuff coming up. But Shankgon had way more problems other than that, so I don't think Deepest Tower has solved it. But yeah, I it's like an interesting topic of discussion, Deepest Tower, because I personally think that you shouldn't really have an item that just is you can auto include in any build. I think that's a little bit weird. Other than I guess like a very general item like a headhunter or something like that. And even then it's not.
Well, we
even
kind
that-
of we kind of did talk about that though, or at least that's like reflecting my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I do think that
yeah,
having those items that like make every build into one build is always like a little bit of a slippery slope. I think Deepest Tower was kind of cool because it was in the end a little bit specialized, and I used it on like a few different builds, and the builds definitely felt not like the other one. Most of the time, it definitely still felt like that build had an identity to itself. I especially recently, and this most recent league, and I've became kind of a rite of passage and headhunter hater because it just makes every build about
Yes.
those 2 items, because it's just like you slap on a headhunter and you have a rite of passage, and it's just like every build it kind of morphs all of the builds into one. And especially as someone who's mainly interested in finding out specific builds but also making them like end game giga juice brain of fast farming viable at the same time, because you can always make like very specific builds that are super cool in its interactions or whatever, but to me at the same time what matters the most is I want them to be at least an A tier in comparison. And with the situation that we have with Rite of Passage and Headhunter, it's hard to do a build like that without being like, this is a Headhunter and Rite of Passage build. So I would always be very careful. And I think they kind of they kind of did it in a good way with Constricting Command, because Constricting Command was kind of a version of Deepest Tower that wasn't as busted and wasn't as build defining as Deepest Tower, but it still had a lot of people using it. I used it on a ton of builds this league, but it wasn't as not even build defining, but build overtaking as Deepest Tower, I think. So
Agreed.
But yeah, I my biggest reason for why I want Deepest Tower back, it just looks cool. I turned off my helmet MTX for that thing because it just looked like you had a big fucking bell on your head or something. It just looks cool.
I want to look like a rook. I like it.
Yes.
I think
that's a
cool.
very.
It looks
a very
like
good
something
point,
out of
Rabbit.
Dark Souls, I think. It looks like something out of Dark Souls 3 or
does.
something like that. Yeah. So yeah, I like it for
I
that
think-
reason.
I think that's a good point, though. I don't look at a constricting command user and think that's a constricting command build. But you do think that about Headhunter, Deepest Towers. So yeah.
I think it's
some items are just very
interesting,
constricting.
um I think constricting command actually, now that I think about it, is kind of like a balanced headhunter and the or not headhunter, sorry, the deepest tower. And I think it goes back to what I've said back in 0.2. Actually, I'm pretty sure you could probably go back to a podcast I said then. It's just it was too easy to get access to the almost like nearly full power of deepest tower. You didn't even need a path there. You could have just used a from nothing jewel and grabbed half the nodes, half the important nodes. Whereas with something like Constricting Command, it's really strong, but you need to invest into it. You can't just get a from nothing and get there from anywhere. And even if you're down there, it's like, what is it, 18 nodes to get every single effect or something like that. So it's like you need to invest to actually get the power out of it. And that was the problem with Deepest Tower. It's just like, it was too easy to access like almost the entire thing.
Good point.
I think there's other balance issues as well that preclude to why constricting command's so good as easy access for armor. Like, yeah, you've got tons of defense in those nodes, 20% attack speed. One of the other big issues, like I obviously main warrior, attack speed and skill wind-ups just feel bad. I was playing around with Bringer of Rain. Bringer of Rain is a surprisingly good item in PoE too, especially with the Amazon. But it falls subject to the mercy of the slow, like you're trying to do rolling slam, right? With a two-handed mace setup is impossible because of the wind-up times. And like it doesn't scale with attack speed, but attack speed's still really limited. You're sort of outperformed by every spellcaster in existence. Every man and his dog was playing Cast on Crit this league. Like Cast on Crit Comet is pretty much like, every other video you almost see is like some different iteration of Cast on Crit Comet. And that's a problem unto itself when like one skill is so predominant in every single scenario that it just outweighs every other build in efficiency and farming. And then obviously there's the health issue versus, blue health, if you want to call it that. There needs to be a bit of an overhaul as to how that scales as well. So like, your average health pool. So the problem with PoE 2 in the way that its enemy design works is it's set up the same way as PoE 1 in relation to like packs and mobs, even post I guess adjustments in 0.4. And so you're getting rushed constantly and whatnot, but your scaling of health is nowhere near as comparable as ES. And so, you got players running around with like 14,000 to 20,000 ES pools, but like on average, you're hitting 3 to 3,500 HP on real severe detrimental defense investment. And that's taking away from your ability to invest into offense. So there's a lot of balance that needs to go. Like my suggestion there is like armor nodes should just have a native HP scaling percentage on them. Like,
That's what I said.
and then that raises your average up to like the average in PoE 1 is like 5 to 4,500 to 5,500 life pool. And that would raise your regeneration rate up. And it means that would scale out a lot better. And that would make a lot more sense based on the enemy packs and the enemies you're versing. And the other side of it is like you should realistically be able to not get one shot. Like if you build a lot more defense up, you should be able to take some real hits. But because there's that whole like you need to. There's actually Titan Quest 2 devs had a really interesting comment about this when they first announced TQ2 with dodge mechanics. There are inherent problems with designing your game around the use of a dodge mechanic or a dodge roll. And part of that is like you've got unwavering stance in the tree as a skill, but you really have no way unless you invest like mirror tier investment into a build almost on melee to get around the fact that there's no scenario where that's actually going to be usable in most of the boss fights in PoE 2. And that doesn't make a lot of sense. So that node really doesn't make sense to even exist in the tree based on how the game's designed. And maybe that's just limitations with the end game right now and, the amount of content, or it could just be an oversight in design philosophy as well. But yeah, there definitely needs to be a lot of balance in that area from a warrior standpoint. Just my view.
Keep going. Talk more about warrior needing buffs. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
Don't care.
definitely never talked about the blue life versus red life thing on we have
I
a
think-
few red lines on this podcast that get mentioned with every single guest, and I really hope that drives home the point here, because it is not just us.
We're not
We
prompting it. This wasn't on the show notes.
We actively avoid these topics now, because it is like we
Every
talk about
week.
this every podcast with every single guest, and it is red life versus blue life. It is like warrior side versus, or like bottom left side versus upper right side. It's like there's a few more that I'm forgetting about. We're talking about Diablo 2 every single
shield wall buff, just buff shield wall just a little more.
Oh, more
It's
buffs
so
for Shield
strong
Wall.
already. What are you talking about?
It's no such thing as strong enough when it comes to shield wall.
Question for you. As one of your disciples of Delve, you are one of the gods of Delve. Do you think it's coming to PoE 1 or PoE 2, excuse me? And if it does, do you think how would you want to see it change from PoE 1?
Fundamentally, the concept of how Delve works is pretty pliable for PoE 2, and the problems that they're currently encountering around endgame mechanics and scalability, sort of even in the interim, would be solved by adding Delve in even at a basic level, because you've got an endlessly scaling mechanic where it would challenge builds and whatnot. The way that PoE 2's builds work versus PoE 1 is one of the biggest problems. So, like, let's look at Flicker Strike Monks, right? Or Thunder, was it what's it called? Falling Thunder Monks. The amount of damage output that puts out in endgame, like one tapping Uber bosses and stuff like that, right? In Path of Exile 2, as it is problematic for mechanics like Delve. And the reason why is it just trivializes the scaling of the mechanic itself. So the build is so overpowered that basically, what is the limit to it in Delve? Like, arguably that build could go infinitely. And that's really one of the problems with how the sort of damage scaling currently works in the end game for PoE 2. It's like if you add in progressive mechanics that scale like that, then how does the mechanic keep up with the power creep that's already in the game? And that's one of the issues. And that's really where it comes down to, like, you're either going to overtune the enemies in Delve and require more defensive options, which means you need to buff defenses across the board, or you have to reduce damage and scale it back down, and then people are going to complain about that. And that's going to be on certain builds, and that could just be a balance question. As far as the mechanic itself goes, like, I think it will come in, because I know Jonathan Rogers, it's one of Jonathan Rogers' favorite mechanics in Path of Exile 1. So, like, that's one thing. Do I think it's going to come in the next patch? Probably not. It's probably not going to come out until, closer to 1.0, or even with the 1.0, because it needs a lot more time to refine. It would have made a lot of sense to release it earlier than later, because it's a really good mechanic. And like, the other thing is, like, how far are they going to modify it, manipulate it, and change it is another thing. From a practical application standpoint, like, they need to do more with the crawler and actually make it interactive, and make the actual Delve map, however they do that, actually interactive, more so than just a static seed system that it currently sort of spawns into. And I always had the idea, like, if you guys have played like Resident Evil, where you've got like Mr. X chasing you or something like that, it'd be a really cool concept where you're in Delve, that there's some sort of boss that's chasing you through Delve and trying to kill you 24/7. Like, that to me seems like a really fun sort of mechanic, where you've got like this ridiculous boss fight that pops up now and again and crashes through a wall, and you're like, oh shit, we're gonna have to go hammer and nail with that. But yeah, there's a ton of things like that. Obviously, adding in the pre-existing Delve bosses, but in some form with PoE 2. There's a lot of lore crossover with the Abyss content as well, and Delve. And if you read the note, I think it's the Island of Kin. There's some really interesting stuff going on there. So there's an argument where you could flip the entire endgame map and have a setting where you actually flip the endgame mapping system, and have like the whole map change into like the Delve underworld sort of thing. And that could be a really cool concept. So you hit a button and it just sort of turns the table upside down. I'd definitely subscribe to that. Yeah, there's a lot of things they could do with it. It's really who knows what they'll do, but those are some ideas at least. And yeah, obviously I'm excited for it either way. I don't even care if it's bad. I'm going to play it either way. So it could be the worst mechanic in the world. I'm probably going to invest all my time into it regardless, as that's how much I like Delve.
Back to the mines.
It's the best. There's no way they could ruin it. There's no way they could ruin it. It's the best. Delve is perfect. Yeah, cool. Agreed with everything. Those are some cool ideas.
Fossil crafting
said you were
will be
delved?
very interesting.
Yeah, fossil crafting I think would help a lot with crafting as it is right now. I think we keep saying that crafting in 0.3 was maybe a little bit too overtuned, and then right now in 0.4 it might be a little bit undertuned again. So adding something in between, like a nice, like in between this overtuned and undertuned, would be nice for next patch. And Delve is an option for crafting.
Cool. All right. Are we ready for build of the week? It is very late for Jorgen, so let's
Wait, you said
get
we're
him
gonna
to sleep
talk about
soon.
Diablo 2. I was.
You had your opener. You did at the
kidding.
start.
Ah, okay. Sorry.
We weren't going to dedicate an
You
entire
and you
section.
transitioned to the D2 topic we gave you to PoE on your own.
Yes,
buddy,
I don't
man.
want to overdo it. I don't want to overdo it. It's. I don't want to overdo it.
All right, let's start with my build. This is from Padoman. He sent this to me in the Thorns Discord. I've always wanted to do a build like this. I don't know if we've shown an ailment build like this, but he's doing the reduced duration scaling stuff on a Titan, but he's also doing reduced ailment threshold. He's got what's the overwhelming presence. He's got a prism of belief for that, and he's got max, and he is doing a just a perma freeze build on Uber Arbiter. As you can see here, it's not the it's pretty good single target for what it is, but it is just purely stun locking bosses, which is just so cool. Have we ever shown a perma freeze build before? We've done so many builds now, I can't remember. But I mean, look at this. Arbiter ain't doing shit. So yeah, he's got overwhelming presence. It reduces the ailment threshold of enemies, and then of course he's got Palm of the Dreamer with the reduced duration scaling. It is really cool. He's got a full build guide that he posted on Reddit for anyone that wants to play with it. He does have a clip of the mapping. The mapping is, it's not a fast mapper. But look at this. I mean, this is so cool. Just Arbiter doesn't get a chance.
That is really cool. Reminds me of back in 0.1, a creator I followed pretty closely. His name was Doth PoE. He did an overwhelming presence things where he lowered stun threshold so low that any doing 1 damage to any enemy would just stun them immediately. With that overwhelming.
Is that
presence.
text still in the game?
No, I don't think so. I think they nerfed it.
Yeah, it's a really cool build. They just I've always perma freeze is I think perma freeze was a thing in 0.1 initially, and then they completely reworked ailment threshold and how the freezes were scaling. But this is super cool. Good job, man.
This is cool. Yep. All right, Rabbit.
Yes. My build of the week is by someone that I still consider to be the most underrated build creator. It is insane.
Sick.
When this popped up this morning, it was oh, perfect. There you go. That's my build of the week.
Jesus.
Without first, I didn't even look at it. Didn't even look at it first. I immediately knew, and I will not be able to tell you a lot about this build because this is. We always say this week. Please check out if you're interested in how the build looks. Please check out the original video because I'm not going to do him justice here in explaining his build. Miso, can you go to 233 in the video, and that will tell you everything you need to know because there's equations on the screen. I'm that is
Keep one out here.
Keep fun builds, man.
Yes,
He's doing this every single time.
Yeah. To explain it, very, very basic and very, very bad. There's Indigon. There is, I forgot the name already. There is the Burden of Shadows Chiming Staff. So the Burden of Shadows Chiming Staff turns skill mana cost into life costs and gives you extra chaos damage based on the cost. Then you have Indigon, which we've showcased a few times now, and I think is one of the coolest items in PoE2 actually, and I'm still amazed that it is not more on the forefront for a lot of builds. And that is you get more spell damage for the mana that you've spent recently, and then he's also using Swollen Shield on weapon set 1, and then he's using the Burden of Shadows on weapon set 2. So he gets a loop going of increasing the amount of life spent for his skills. So he will have like a life spent of over 20,000 on Arc. He himself can't cast the arcs anymore, with the arcs gaining like a crazy damage boost with all the life spend based on that, and the mana spend, and then Indigon, obviously. But he uses spell totems to then cast the sparks, and it is insane. It is the absolute epitome of what build creation Path of Exile 2 could look like. And it's really interesting because when you guys were talking about the whole PoE 1 thing about creating builds and needing like a PhD in certain things or whatever, you can take it this far in PoE 2. You can have like builds where the interactions don't end, and then like it is absolutely crazy. I just see someone Morph saying why Swollen. I think it's just it's the block because the defensive layers
block,
of
right?
this build is the defensive layer on this build is a lot of mana. He's using Castle Block. He's using like a 75% block chance. It is. Please, if you're interested in Path of Exile 2 builds and build making overall, and you like convoluted builds like that a little bit, this is the one. Qfun is insane.
Qfun's sick.
Like his videos, how he explains the builds is absolutely insane. This is the build creator that I was told not to worry about, but I think my wife is actually she's not here, so I'm assuming she's with him now. So
Yeah, I
don't know.
like this is probably super rippy, even though he's invested like probably a mirror, right? But like,
yeah.
No,
he says in the video it's actually quite
the
budget
block
friendly.
chance.
Well,
Indigon is not
just
expensive.
does all the
Burden
heavy
of Shadow-
lifting, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there's like the core uniques of the builds are not the core uniques of the build are not uniques that are like Vertex +4 or whatever. It's like it's pretty niche, and that means it's gonna be cheap.
Indigon will not stay niche.
But what does cheap?
This-
What does cheap even mean this league? So it's always like.
Well,
it's
yeah,
so-
of course. Ignoring that, I think Indigon is like, it's going to be meta before long, right? Like we're starting to see so many cracked builds using it.
If you think about it this way, Indigon got nerfed this patch, and it was never a meta skill. So it just shows how powerful it was in the past, to where it wasn't even a meta item and it got nerfed. And it's still ridiculous, apparently.
Yes.
I'm using it in PoE 1 right now too. It's really good there too.
Cool, sweet.
That's it.
Cool. Speaking of which, I actually was thinking about something. When we were talking about earlier about specific builds and like certain farms, I don't know, Jorgen, if you've delved into like Abyss farming at all with like Winds of Light, but that is kind of the same thing where there are a lot of builds that can't do that farm. So I think we're starting to get.
That's true. That's a good
towards that
example.
direction.
That is a very good example. There are a lot of people that cry they can't do Omen of Light farming.
Yeah, it's something that started to pop up more in this 0.4 patch, and I think it's going to get more prevalent as they sort of redesign mechanics. And I think things like Ritual will likely change. A lot of the different mechanics that are in there, like Breach, we've got the old version of Breach currently, and it's very likely they'll start looking to port the amended Breach in PoE 1 over to PoE 2 potentially at some point. So yeah, well, I reckon over time we'll start to see that build specialization come. I think most of the mechanics are relatively superficial up to the recent ones that have been released, like the temple and whatnot. So yeah, we're probably walking down that path sooner than later.
And people are going to have to adjust.
I personally, and I think we've talked about this as well before, I just very, very personally, I really like that. I really like having specific builds for specific things, because in my opinion, it opens up not just build variety, but also like variety in playstyles, because I think I personally really like it. I've heard some people say they really dislike it because they want to do everything with one specific character, and I get it from a standpoint that you don't have to spend 12, or you can spend 12 hours every day having different characters or whatever. But I personally just really like it. I always liked it in Diablo 2. I always liked having a Nova Sword for key farming. I always liked like having specific characters for other stuff. So I love that. I think it improves build variety.
I agree. I think it's really cool, and I can already see the people complaining about it though, because people are already complaining about Omen of Light not being able to farm
I understand it.
Yeah, no.
Like it's understandable in my opinion, but also if you look at it through a lens of like if you then find something that you can do well on your character and it's fun to you, specialization, even if you don't have all the time to spend, can feel very cool. And you just have to accept that, maybe I can't do that one farm, but I'm really good at this farm. So
I think
it's a trade-off.
It builds an active market too. So like you've got people that specialize in this side of the trade market, people that specialize over here, and that builds like a cohesive community where different people are doing all different things, and then it actually builds a lot more abundance of access to crafting gear, crafting mats and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I don't want to open another a can of worms at this point in the podcast, but I think there is potentially a conversation for if we want to bridge that gap to where like, these people are saying like, oh, I don't have time to play another build. Maybe we talk about a campaign expediting after your first clear, something like that with the Arbiter. I don't know. I've talked about it on my stream a couple times. It's a very divisive topic. I'm not going to open that can of worms here.
I don't want to deal with that hate, Miso. Don't bring that bad energy to this podcast.
GGG have said they will die for like years. That has been the argument. And for years, they've basically said they are willing to die on the hill to never, ever allow that in the PoE in any capacity.
Async trade wasn't going to come before Chris Wilson left, is all I'm going to say.
Oh, shut up.
So I think there's a conversation to be had, potentially. But, we can talk about that in another podcast or something like that.
Yeah.
For now.
Oh, yeah, the very uncontroversial campaign skip topic. Where,
very good.
Yeah, Miso left the fart at the end of the podcast and then said, see ya.
For anybody, just keep following the podcast. We might bring it up in the future. But the build that I wanted to show off is, as I mentioned earlier, this is a really cool build. Another kind of like Cal's build, like that he showcased. It's not like something that is like gonna blast Endgame, but I think it's a really cool proof of concept that could be scaled more because the Mr. Troy over here has, I'd say, the gear that he's using is not he can definitely push the ceiling higher. Like this. So this build is a
20 mil damage in 30 seconds.
Whoops, mute him. This build is a Shankgon Boots build that utilizes Crackling Palm, like the gloves that got introduced in 0.4 with the what is it called?
Choir.
Yeah, and Choir. He uses Crackling Palm and Choir. So Crackling Palm, for those who don't know, is the glove that people use mostly with Hollow Palm last league, where when you hit an enemy with an unarmed attack, it shoots down a lightning bolt, kind of like what Choir of the Storms does when you crit. So he's getting the lightning bolts from Crackling Palm and from Choir of the Storms. And normally Shankgon Boots is not considered an attack, but he links it with Stomping Ground, which turns it into attack, which allows you to scale it and proc the Crackling Palm with unarmed attacks. And unarmed attacks, Crackling Palm scales with your unarmed attack damage, so you can scale with flat damage and things like that too. So he basically uses a Shankgon Boots to crit, to proc and he's on Oracle as well, so he's going to proc the crits and proc the Choir of the Storms, and then he procs the unarmed attack with Shankgon as well on Crackling Palm, leading to this effect that we have right here. Again, its single target is definitely not amazing, but he's not, like, it can definitely be scaled more, and also he's not even using Temporalis on this, which would make the Shankgon Boots have a much lower cooldown as well. So I think it's a really cool build, really cool idea. Makes the Shankgon Boots actually work, which is something that I wanted to do last league but couldn't. And yeah, just really cool proof of concept.
Hold on a second. So Before we talk about Choir of the Storm, this stomping ground tech is this exclusive to these boots, or does this like turn other things into attacks that you can scale?
I think as long as you're
'Cause
using
that opens up a lot of possibilities alone. Just if you can slopping ground in to scale it. That's
as long as it
that's a
has to be a
crazy
movement
tech.
skill. Remember that it has to be a movement skill to be able to stomp
Right,
stomping ground into it.
That's right.
And I think that I can't think of that many other situations where a movement skill isn't an attack skill, and maybe it's a specific thing with the like maybe you can't put it on spells and make it work like that. I haven't experimented with it at all, but that's kind of the rule here. It's kind of like
that's where my head was at. Was like, could you do something fucking weird with it?
yeah, I mean maybe it's possible, but I haven't experimented with it at all. I just saw this build and it's like, oh, this is really cool, and I think it should be highlighted.
This is fucking awesome. No, this absolutely shouldn't be highlighted. But not to comment on the state of this build, or this is fucking incredible. This is a cool tech for sure. Choir of the Storm is on the verge of being put into like headhunter, not headhunter tier, but I'm Choir of the Storm builds. Like when I'm starting to see choir builds as a thing now. Like when I look at someone using a build and I see Choir of the Storm, I'm like, oh, this is just another choir build, right? This is not just another choir build. This is a fucking awesome choir build. But choir is pushing that point where it's like, yeah, a lot of people use choir to make off meta builds work. It's really good.
I've talked about it before, but choir it hasn't been played. It wasn't played last league much, but it feels like every time choir is relevant, it's extremely strong, and also like it's been like nerfed a couple times because of the interaction just leading to a lot of weird wonky things happening in the game.
Yeah. Obviously, you shouldn't be able to infinite like Rabbit was doing at the beginning of the league, like
Mana flare.
Why?
And shit.
What?
Why he says
Infinite damage scaling. They're the best thing.
I like that build.
Yeah, I bet you did. That's a Dead Rabbit build for sure. No, this is quick though.
Yeah,
cool. I might be playing a build like this after I'm done with my PoE 1 vacation.
I have a build
This
idea
is
that's
sick.
incoming for whenever I'm done with PoE 1 as well. It's gonna be a what is it called? A reverse chill build, but then I'm thinking about running on Pathfinder and then running the node that makes you are unaffected by slows. Then you do a self curse where you hit yourself with temporal chains to make buffs last longer, and then you do like a shrine scepter to make it so you're always running acceleration. Basically, acceleration shrine.
That sounds fun.
So perma acceleration shrine with reverse chill. Sounds like it could be
Sounds goofy.
pretty crazy. So we'll see. Yep. All right. Those are the builds.
That's a cool build. Shout out to Troy. That's a cool tech for sure. Those are like that's what everyone means when there's always something under like as solved or as like rigid as PoE2 build making feels. That's probably because there's a lot of shit like that that's just underneath the surface that like just once it gets discovered it opens up doors.
The build idea just got destroyed.
Yeah, apparently it doesn't reverse chill doesn't work with unaffected by slows. I'll think of something else.
Oh, that's so PoE2. Like that's so PoE2 sometimes. It's like, oh my god,
yeah.
This could be amazing. It doesn't work.
Don't let them shoot down your hopes and dreams. Do it anyway.
Keep your dreams going.
Make it happen.
Fuck chat. Carve your own path.
I mean, there's probably another way to do it.
Yes.
That's the spirit. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, Soshiro from the Path to Exile podcast, there is always a way. There's always a way.
Thanks for coming on, Jorgen.
No
thanks
worries.
for staying up super late. Was it like 3-4 a.m. your time?
It's
5.
4 a.m. I got to go to work in 3 hours.
Oh shit.
Oh my god, bro. Thanks so much
It's
for
fine.
coming on, man. It was absolute pleasure.
No, that's fine. It was a pleasure coming on. And
Where can people find you and check out your stuff?
as the name says, just type it in the into YouTube. You'll find me. And otherwise, I stream most nights anyway. Right now it's PoE 1. Then we'll get into PoE 2 once we start to wind up into the new 0.5, and then you'll probably see a bunch of top 5 community build or videos every week, something like that. And for anyone who wants to be featured on my channel, who's watching in the chat, feel free to stop by our Discord, and yeah, we'll get that one going again, probably sooner than later. Otherwise, super keen for PoE 2.5.
Oh yeah. Go ahead, Miso.
Yeah, much like Jorgen, for the builds of the week that we feature on this podcast, remember, I have a section in my Discord for anybody who wants to submit their builds to be potentially featured. Again, no guarantees you will be featured, but if there is a cool enough build that props up, I'll definitely take a look at it and feature that. So come to my Discord to post those. Also, find me on twitch.tv/BSoXshiro. Currently playing, like I said earlier, a homebrew Elementalist, Herald Stacker, Spectral Shield Throw build in Path of Exile 1. If you want to watch me on that journey, come hang out, stream every single night. Also, youtube.com, ExileCon. Try to upload a new video like every other day if I can.
Rabbit.
Hello. I stream Diablo 2 at the moment. I will probably I'm going to the US in 2 weeks or something, and at least until then I will probably stick with Diablo 2, and then once I come back in the mid-April, I will most likely go back to PoE 2 already, like seeing how the update most likely is going to come in early May, mid-May or something. I'll probably go back to PoE 2 in sometime in April, and then until then, though, if you have never checked out the Diablo 2 stream, come join in. It is amazing. It's an amazing game. It has a lot of oohs and ahs all the time. Yes, that's my pitch. I stream.
Cool. Well, you guys know where you can find me, Kaltorak, YouTube, Twitch. I stream sometimes. Sometimes I don't stream. Sometimes I make YouTube videos. Sometimes I don't. But just watch me every week on this podcast, though. Shout out to Jorgen once again for coming on. Shout out to homies for hanging out. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Peace.
Have a good one.